Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Nightly Sports Call.
Thanks a lot, Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. Give us a call, 412-575-2600. Gene Collier is my co-host tonight. We'll be talking about the Steelers and their plans to replace Ryan Shazier for the near future and who it will be. It's a combination of a couple guys. Also, update on Ryan Shazier's condition right now. He had to have surgery last night, a spine surgery. It's a spine stabilization surgery, which indicates that he had some type of fracture in his spine. His condition is still unknown. His recovery is unknown. Timetable is unknown. We don't know much other than what the Steelers released today, which is a very vague press release that he had surgery. So we all hope the best right now, Gene, but you know, the fact that not a lot of information is coming out, just like we were talking about yesterday, you don't know what to believe really right now, or what to think maybe.
Well, I think today the Steelers talked about Ryan Shazier in kind of much more long-term terms, if you will. Clearly, they don't expect him back anytime soon. They're thinking of him more in terms of what he'll be able to do as his recovery continues and progresses. And really, all they can do for Ryan now is just to hope that he gets better.
Yeah, and Keith Butler talked after practice today saying he's not worried about Ryan playing football anymore. He's worried about Ryan living a normal life. And, you know, that's kind of what, like you said, most of the players were saying in the locker room. So we don't have much, and I know a lot of people out there want more information and, you know, just want to hear that he's doing well, but we can't say if he's doing well or not right now just because no one really knows, and we just hate to speculate, other than he did have spinal stabilization surgery, which would indicate that there was some kind of fracture, that it just wasn't a spinal cord injury. So, you know, depending on the severity and what it is, he potentially could play football. No one's ruling that out again, but you know, I know a lot of people are just concerned that he will be able to live a normal life in the future. So yeah, we can't really read into it other than what the Steelers provide us information. So Gene, you know, now the Steelers have to replace him. You know, we can pretty much assume that he's not going to be playing the rest of the year, even if it is best case scenario that he's going to be out 4 to 6 months with this type of surgery. But what do they do now? You know, they have arguably their best player is on the sidelines for the rest of the year. How do you replace a guy like that?
Well, you just simply don't. I mean, you put somebody else in there and hope that he plays to the best of his ability. But, you know, none of the Steelers' options are a player near the caliber of Ryan Shazier. So what you do is you'll put in Tyler Matakevich if he can play. He hurt his shoulder in the same game. And today they indicated that they would move outside linebacker Arthur Moats inside. And Arthur Moats is a nice backup. He's not Ryan Shazier. Yeah,
you know, it's like you said, you can't replace a guy like Ryan Shazier. Maybe the biggest question, the question I want to ask you is, does this... not only will it hurt the team because you're losing an all-pro type player, but will this affect the team moving forward? And how do you think this will affect this team?
I don't think it really affects them much, Rich, in terms of how intensely they play. If you're in the locker room, you can tell that it's not that they're unaffected. I mean, they're worried. But in terms of what they do day to day, in terms of their football lives, you know, they go forward just as they went forward Monday night in Cincinnati, came back from a 17-point deficit and won that game. You know, they're very professional in that regard. So I don't think it's going to affect them beyond the tangible impact it has of losing that kind of talent.
So you don't think it'll linger on to maybe this weekend against the Ravens?
I don't. That's not to say that they'll beat the Ravens, but I don't think it'll be because of this.
All right, we're taking your phone calls tonight. 412-575-2600 is the number. You can always tweet me, @RichieWalsh. Anything you want to talk about tonight, back in 2 minutes.